You are now at stop 12, the first half of the historic Toussaint Louverture audio cell phone tour. You will hear the history of the cemetery and 5 stories identified by markers 1 through 5 of those buried on the east side of the cemetery. Occasionally you'll hear transitional music played as you move between some of the markers in order to give you time to reach each location. As you proceed to marker 1, you'll hear an introduction and a brief history of the cemetery.
Hello, this is Mayor Ken Moore. On behalf of Leadership Franklin, class of 2012-2013, the City of Franklin Parks Department, and the Battlefield Preservation Commission, I would like to welcome you to the Toussaint Louverture cell phone audio tour. Local historians, community leaders, and a few celebrities will guide you through the tour describing the lives of those buried at the cemetery who have richly impacted the history of Franklin. Newscaster Tom Randalls will begin by sharing the history of the cemetery. We hope you enjoy the tour.
On January 1st, 1884, 19 years after the Civil War and only 7 years after the Reconstruction of the South, 44 black men of Williamson County met in the town of Franklin, Tennessee to purchase 4 acres of land to be used as a burial ground for persons of African descent. The group of men was led by Mr. Henry Ewing, a local contractor. This was during a time when the racial caste system was a way of life and African Americans were seen as second-class citizens, even when it came to burying the deceased. Many blacks were buried with unmarked graves or in small, unkept cemeteries. The land purchase was located on the north side of the all-white Mount Hope Cemetery and, ironically, was once occupied by the Union troops in 1863 during the Civil War. White pine trees were deliberately planted in a straight line between the 2 cemeteries in order to establish a distinct partition. Toussaint Louverture is what the well-informed group of men chose to call the land. The name represented dignity and freedom for them, especially for those who had survived slavery. In 1791, before the Civil War, Toussaint Louverture, a former slave, became the leader of the Haitian Revolution. His military genius and political acumen led to the defeat of the French leader Napoleon Bonaparte and transformed an entire society of slaves into a free, self-governing people. This was a defining moment in history for Africans in the New World and was a name that the 44 men were proud to display as the final resting place for African Americans of Williamson County. Toussaint Louverture Cemetery is located in Hard Bargain, a historic African American neighborhood that was established in 1875 and is often referred to as the Cemetery on the Hill. So let's take a little walk and learn about these fascinating people and their diverse contributions to the Franklin community, which dates back as far as the 1800s.
Starting from the entrance of Del Rio Pike, approach Marker 1, located in Section A at the top of the hill, and hear the story of Samuel Lee Johnson, told by Pastor Hewitt Sawyers.
Samuel Lee Johnson was a private in the United States Army during World War I. He served in the all-black 351st Field Artillery Battery of the 92nd D Infantry Division. Trained in October 1917 at Camp Funston, Kansas, Samuel Lee Johnson and his division embraced the symbol of the buffalo as their official badge before leaving for France in 1918. Because of this symbol, they were known as Buffalo Soldiers during World War I. The maximum strength of Johnson's division was a little over 27,000 men. However, he was one of only 24 who fired cannons. He spent 6 weeks on the front line as a number 1 cannon and machine gunman. Johnson also helped fire the last gun before armistice was signed. Private Johnson and his Buffalo Soldiers infantry went to the front line in October 1918 in the Battle of Argonne Forest. This final and most deadly offense stretched along the entire Western Front. The Buffalo Soldiers fought in the eastern part of France near Metz until November the 11th, 1918, when the war came to a sudden end. Upon returning to Franklin after the war, Samuel Johnson graduated from Meharry School of Embalming in 1920. While in school, Johnson noticed his eyesight was diminishing. Chemical warfare was a major component of the front line during World War I and caused many injuries, including loss of eyesight. At first, Johnson thought nothing of it, but by 1925, he'd become completely blind. With a disability, a family of 5 to support, and children's education to finance, Johnson entered the School for the Blind in Nashville to learn a trade that would help him earn a living for his family. He was taught how to make brooms and mops and how to rebottom chairs. Eventually, he opened a broom factory and grocery store in Franklin where he sold high-quality items. Johnson also capitalized on a skill that he learned while in the war in France. He began hand-making customized bricks. By 1953, he handmade 55,000 bricks and concrete blocks that he sold to construction companies. Johnson owned many properties in the African American community, including the only African American movie theater called The Gym. He also owned the building that housed the American Legion Hall, where African Americans could go for live entertainment. It is said that Olympic gold medalist Jesse Owens made a special appearance and that Fats Domino and Tyrone Davis performed at the hall. Known as a philanthropic man, Johnson also opened a craft workshop in Franklin where he taught people with disabilities how to make brooms, mops, and chair bottoms. He did this free of charge. He wanted to give back to the community that so graciously gave to him. Please walk straight up the hill and approach marker 2 located in section B. There you'll hear the story of Franklin's beloved Mariah Riddick, as told by local historian Thelma Battle.
Mariah Bell Riddick was the favorite servant of one of the wealthiest families in Franklin, the McGavick family. She was the head of the household staff and took care of 4 generations of the family. During the Civil War, the McGavicks sent most of their slaves further south so they wouldn't be influenced by the Union's presence. Mariah was also sent south to Montgomery, Alabama, but was specifically chosen to serve the family of one of the highest-ranking persons in the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, the president and leader of the Confederate States of America. Mariah primarily served Jefferson Davis's mother-in-law, Mrs. Howell, which was a prestigious position to have as a slave, a position that was even respected by Southern whites. Born in 1838, at least according to what she wrote in her Bible, Mariah was given as a gift from Colonel Van Perkins and Martha Grundy Winder of Louisiana to their daughter, Carrie Winder, and her groom, Colonel John McGavick, on their wedding day. The McGavicks brought Mariah to Franklin at the tender age of 10. She began her life as a house slave at the historic Conton Plantation, which is now a museum frequented by visitors from all over the world. Her picture is currently displayed in the Conton Mansion, where her story is often shared during tours. In 1853, at the age of 15, Mariah married Harvey Odie, a slave owned by John H. and Sally McGavick Odie, and had their first child. They had 7 additional children within a 10-year period, including 2 sets of twins. This was a higher than average amount of children for most slaves her age, as childbearing for slaves started around the age 13, and by 20, women slaves were expected to have 4 to 5 children. Her last child was born on February the 28th, 1863 in Montgomery, Alabama, while she was serving the Davis family. 25 days after she gave birth, Harvey Sr. died in Franklin, Tennessee. While Mariah and Harvey were considered married in the eyes of the community and by custom, with permission of their owners, their marriage was never legally binding. Slaves were considered property, and marriage was a civil right and legal contract available only to free people. 2 years after the death of her first husband, Mariah legally married her second husband, Bowling Reddick, on October the 30th, 1865, 6 months after the Civil War. Bowling was a slave from Montgomery who came back to Tennessee with her after the war. They had one son, John Watt Reddick. Mariah died in 1922, but her life has all but been forgotten in Franklin. She has been closely connected with prominent events in the South, including being referenced as a historical character in The Widow of the South, a book written by Robert Hicks about the life of her owner, Carrie Winder McGavock. Approach Marker 3 on the left and learn about Dr. Charles C. Johnson, told by Tommy Murdock, president of Franklin's African American Heritage Society.
Dr. Charles Claudius Johnson was one of Franklin's first black physicians. He was born in 1880 in Canton, Missouri. He began practicing medicine in Franklin, Tennessee in 1917 after finishing medical school at Meharry Medical College. For over 49 years, he selflessly provided outstanding medical care for the African American community in Franklin. Dr. Johnson was a highly recognized leader who often forfeited the cost of his medical services. In 1906, Dr. Johnson entered Meharry Medical College after convincing the president of the college that he needed to become a physician in order to find the cure for a disease that debilitated his father's health. With only $25 at the time to pay towards his tuition, he was forced to drop out of school frequently in order to earn money necessary for college expenses. To earn money for school, he worked as a mason and also on the Chicago Railroad. With extreme commitment and tenacity, he completed his medical degree 11 years later. In June 1948, Dr. Johnson made history by establishing the first and only black-owned hospital in Franklin. The Johnson Hospital, which was originally located on Columbia Avenue. He moved out of his home and converted it into a 3-bed hospital in order to accommodate black mothers who during that time were not allowed to stay overnight with their newborns at other hospitals in Franklin. More than 100 babies were born each year for the next 14 years at the Johnson Hospital. Dr. Johnson was also a huge advocate for empowering African Americans through education, volunteering frequently at the all-black Franklin Training School located on Natchez Street. In 1956, due to the growing number of African American elementary school students, the Franklin Special School District approved the building of another all-black school. The school was named the Charles C. Johnson School in honor of Dr. Johnson. The school was completed in 1958 for $390,000 and was the pride and joy of the African American community. Johnson Elementary School is still located on Glass Lane in Franklin and now serves students grades pre-K through 4th. Dr. Johnson will forever be remembered as a generous, good-humored man who served the Franklin community until his death in 1966. You may now approach Marker 4, located on the left, and hear the story about one of Franklin's most amazing musicians, told by Grammy Award-winning recording artist Toby Mack.
John Douglas House, better known as J.D., was one of the finest musicians in Franklin, Tennessee during the mid-1900s. Capable of being a one-man orchestra, he founded a local jazz band, the Patent Leather Kids, and gained recognition in the most affluent communities in Middle Tennessee. His band played in main ballrooms and for esteemed establishments, including the J.P. Price Mercantile Company, the Rendezvous Club on Franklin Road, and at the Maxwell House Hotel, which was considered the premier hotel in downtown Nashville, having served 7 U.S. presidents and other prominent guests, including Thomas Edison, Sarah Bernhardt, and Henry Ford. The band included his wife, Arvilla House, better known as Bybee, who played piano, his nephew, Fred Williams, who played second trumpet, Willie Wilson, who played drums, Professor Wilbur Cartwright, who played violin, and George Bell, a performer with the circus, who played first trumpet. The Patent Leather Kids entertained during a time when Jim Crow laws were alive and prevalent, but according to Bybee, they were always allowed to enter the front doors when they performed, as they were considered the very best. The House family was known as the African American family with exquisite social etiquette. They lived in a home that is currently recognized by the Williamson County Historical Society as the legendary Greenhouse, the oldest remaining African American house left standing in Franklin, located at the corner of 2nd Avenue and Church Street. The greenhouse was not always green, according to Bybee, and was originally owned by J.D.'s parents, Mr. William Munch House and Dosia House. They purchased the house in 1906, and the property remained in the family until 2002. In the early 1900s, J.D.'s parents used their home as a rooming house for African Americans visiting town, as blacks weren't allowed to stay in local hotels. In the 1930s, the house became the entertainment magnet for their diversified neighborhood, which included blacks from working class to poor, from sons and daughters of ex-slaves to sons and daughters of slave masters. This thriving African American community, coined as the Forgotten Settlement by local historian Thelma Battle, ran the span of 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, and Church Street. The Patent Leather Kids was a highlight in this community, as music was an integral part of African American lives, especially in the South. The neighbors loved hearing the band play and would often flock to the house's home, crowding the inside and even standing outside the windows in order to listen to the smooth sound of jazz. John Douglas House and his entire family added to the richness of Franklin's history. Engulfed in the community, J.D. chauffeured for Judge Wallace Smith for many years, worked with the Patton Brothers Funeral Home for 20 years, and drove a delivery truck for W.S. Rose Grocery Store located on Main Street for 25 years. John House died July 27, 1972, after a short illness. He and Arvilla House never had children. Now let's hear the fascinating story of A.N.C. Williams, presented by recording artist and American Idol finalist Melinda Doolittle. Approach marker 5, approximately 30 feet in front of you, near the center of the road.
Allen Neville's Crutcher Williams, better known as A.N.C. Williams, was recognized as a notable man in Franklin during the late 1800s. In 1866, only 1 year after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and the enforcement of the 13th Amendment, A.N.C., a former slave, built, owned, and operated a mercantile store and an adjacent ice cream parlor on Main Street, right in the heart of Franklin's local business district. During this time when dirt roads were common and telephones, telegraphs, and railroads were non-existent, it was a challenge for anyone owning a business. Imagine the difficulties of a former slave. To open his businesses on Main Street, A.N.C. was able to secure a loan from a white bank officer at Harpeth Bank based on his proven work ethic and remained in business for 64 years. Due to failing health, he retired in 1928 as the oldest continual operating merchant on Main Street. Patronized by both blacks and whites, the store remained in A&C's family for a total of 115 years, until it was destroyed by fire in 1981. Remnants of the frame of the store still exist in stores now located at 416 and 418 Main Street. Born a slave on September 25, 1844 in Spring Hill, Tennessee, A&C was sold at the age of 6 and brought to Franklin, where he was a servant of Dr. R. Crutcher. In 1863, at the age of 18, he was sold again to Andrew Jackson Williams, a captain in the Confederate Army. During the Civil War, A&C gained the attention of the Union Army that was stationed in Franklin when he was accused of being a Southern collaborator. He was called before a military tribunal to answer to charges that he was a sniper who shot Union troops. Due to lack of evidence, he was released and instantaneously gained more respect from local whites. Prior to gaining his freedom in 1865, the enterprising A&C began teaching himself to read and write by tracing scraps of paper. He eventually had to stop because it was considered dangerous for a slave to know how to write. Later, his last owner formally taught him to read and write, and A&C became an avid student of the Bible. He even briefly taught school in the 1870s. A deeply spiritual man, Williams purchased and donated land for the Cummins Street Christian Church. He served as founding member and pastor of the church, which is now known as the Cummins Street Church of Christ. The church is still located on the same land and maintains a thriving, predominantly African American membership. Williams also contributed to the settlement and development of Franklin's African American community, known as Natchez. A&C Williams was well thought of and considered honest and trustworthy in every area of his life. Upon his death in 1930, the town of Franklin mourned the passing of a respected leader. In an uncommon tribute in the segregated South, Williams' obituary was printed on the front page of the newspaper.
This concludes Stop 12. Enter 13 # now to continue with 5 more stories of notable African Americans, located in Section C at the top of the hill near the center of the road.